wanted to talk with you all this morning, my colleagues, about something that's rarely talked about openly and honestly in my experience, which is the experience as a physician of being sued and what it's like. It's, in my experience, a dark secret in our profession. We tend not to talk about this in the locker room or in front of each other at parties, things like that. And I wanted to bring this subject out of the shadows into the open. And I thought I would do that by using my experience, having been sued, and share that with you in the hopes that it will make you more prepared to deal with it if you have to go through the same experience yourself. I realized that given my background as a psychiatrist, although I practiced ophthalmology for 38 years, that I was really in a unique position to be able to watch myself going through this process so that I could then use it, hopefully, as a teaching tool for others going forward. I've given lots of talks, and many of the talks I give, I often start with a question, which is how many of you people have been sued? And a certain number of doctors will raise their hands, others won't. And I look around the room and I see that many of the doctors have their hands down have been sued because I've seen their cases. But they're reluctant to share it even in a very open forum among colleagues. So here goes with what it's like for me, and I will do this roughly chronologically and talk about things that you may or may not have experienced if you've been sued, but you might experience in the unfortunate situation that you are. First of all, it's a horrible experience for you, your family, your colleagues, your coworkers. It's just a horrible experience. It's not something we're trained to deal with. So what's the beginning? The beginning is when you're sitting in your office and a person comes in and slaps the legal papers on the front desk or hands them to you, and that's the first notice that you're being sued. I remember distinctly when that happened to me. I was filled with rage at the man who was delivering them. I felt like I wanted to strangle him, but he was just doing his job. And so I just accepted it quietly. And I opened the papers and I saw the patient's name, and I was filled with rage, again, frankly, because I thought I had done my very best for this patient. The patient had experienced a surgical complication, not, in my opinion, malpractice, but I was really angry with him. And that instilled in me a feeling of guilt, because we're not supposed to get angry or feel angry with our patients. I felt unprofessional feeling that. So I immediately called MLMIC, as I was instructed to do, and a very nice person came out to the office and took the history, going through my chart with me. And then I heard nothing for a while. Finally, an attorney that MLMIC had provided for me came out and met with me and went over the case with me, and I felt immediately better. I felt like there was somebody on my side. He was not judgmental. He was not overly optimistic. He was just on my side. After that, there's a prolonged period of nothingness. Nothing happens, and then you get a notification that your EBT, your deposition, is about to be taken. That's a meeting where the plaintiff's attorney basically interviews you, cross-examines you in front of a stenographer, and it's a procedure where I have been told you can only hurt yourself but not really help yourself. The plaintiff's attorney had really no interest in finding out why the case was frivolous, in my opinion. His job there is to assess me as a potential witness at trial, and I was aware of that. My attorney told me that I should think, for those of you old enough to remember, think of yourself as Marcus Welby. You want to come across as a kind, compassionate, in my case, paternalistic physician, someone who you'd like to go to I still remember Robert Young very clearly on TV, and he was the doctor that everybody wanted. The EBT is designed not to elicit your view of things. It's designed to provide the attorney with facts that might be used against you. He's not really interested in hearing the story, and there's no point in trying to convince him that his case has no merit, because that's not going to happen. So the best advice, as always, is to follow your attorney's advice and keep the answers short and sweet. Don't volunteer information. Don't try and tell the story of the case as you would presenting a case to a colleague or in a grand rounds. The attorney tries to assess you, as I said, and how you're going to present as a witness at trial. One of the things that he did was got angry with me, as I understood it, in the hopes that I would, trying to dissuade him from being angry, agree to questions or provide answers that I thought would calm him down, but which really weren't accurate. So I resisted that. I remember distinctly that my last name is Lombardo. I remember distinctly him calling me Lombardi. He obviously knew my name was Lombardo. I think he did that in the hopes that I would get huffy and say, well, it's Lombardo. But I resisted that. I didn't correct him. I let him call me Lombardi. And that was that. I was told it went fine. Then more time goes by. These things are anything if not inefficient, in my opinion. And as we're approaching trial, the plaintiff's attorney tells my attorney that this case, the value of this case, may be beyond my insurance coverage, and in which case my personal assets would be exposed if there was a decision against me. I have to emphasize that as this process unfolds, you really lose sight of which end is up. You really lose sight of which end is up. You find yourself thinking that you are the worst doctor in the world. Maybe it's time to retire. The plaintiff's attorney will accuse you of basically starting the Chicago fire and everything in between. You'll be accused of being incompetent, dishonest, out of touch. And the strange thing that happens is that as you approach and go into trial, part of you believes that. You really lose all sense of where reality is. And that's where you really have to depend on your attorney and on the doctors who are going to testify on your behalf. Eventually, the trial happens. This trial was in Kings County, Brooklyn. And I have to say that when you go into the courtroom, I find courtrooms and the buildings in which they're housed to be incredibly depressing places. They're dark. Nothing starts on time. Everybody seems to have the job of getting over on everybody else. So it was quite common. So we're supposed to start at 9:30, let's say. So being a typical doctor, I was there at 9:15. 9:45, the first jurors start rolling in. By 10:20, everybody's there. There's more time passes. So around 10 of 11, things get rolling. It's just infuriating and inefficient, but that's the way things are. The cases begin with the opening by the plaintiff, where, as I said before, you're accused of horrible things, and you wish you try and maintain calmness, which I did, but in this face of a whole litany of what I felt were untruths. The way the jury trials are scheduled, the plaintiff has his case first. He presents the case. He presents his expert witness against me. The expert witness against me was, I believe, over 80, and said many things that I felt were absolutely false. Later on, I'll tell you about what I did with him, with the American Board of Ophthalmology. There are two really tough times for me during a case. The first is after the plaintiff has presented his entire case. And that's when you feel like you don't have a chance in the world of prevailing and that you should probably retire because you've lost some miles off the fastball. You're just no longer competent. And that's when you really need to depend on your attorney to keep things in perspective. He or she will tell you how things are going. We had a very fair judge, in my opinion, Judge Weston, very fair, didn't let anybody lose their temper. We had an interesting, one funny moment in the trial was when I was testifying, and it was just before lunch, and she said to me, well, Dr. Lombardo, we're going to lunch now. We're going to break for lunch. We're going to go to lunch. And before I realized what I had said, I said to her, together? And the courtroom just broke up. Everybody began laughing, including her. And she said, no, not together. I got to emphasize the fact that you're really not allowed at trial to just tell the story as you would to a colleague. The questions are such that you have to answer them in the way plaintiff's attorney phrases them, unless your attorney objects. So you don't really quite have the feeling that you've just really told the story. So now it's time for my case and my experts. I had two experts who were just wonderful. You can't talk to them before, obviously during, but they were convincing, persuasive, and I'm really so appreciative of them. Let me throw in a little plug here, a little advertisement. If you're asked to review a case on behalf of an insurance company about a doctor who's being sued, and you feel the medicine practiced was defensible, review that case, set aside the time. It wreaks havoc with your schedule. Testify for that doctor in court if you feel that you're ethically able to, because you're going to want someone to do the same for you when it's your time to be on trial. The case gets presented, jury goes out, the plaintiff's attorney asks my attorney if I'd like to settle this matter, and I had enough of the presence of mind to tell my attorney, hell no. He thought things were going in well. And the jury came back, and fortunately they came back with a verdict in my favor. It's at that point, it's prior to that, just before the jury comes back, that you also feel really low and nervous and threatened. That's where you really need to be guided by what your attorney recommends. And MLMIC has an incredible panel of defense attorneys. I had an attorney who I trusted from the get-go. He used to keep a pad by his bed at night, in the middle of the night. If he had an idea, he would wake up and write it down so that he hadn't forgotten it by morning. I mean, that's the kind of dedication that he had. I can't imagine how these defense attorneys, for me, it was a couple of weeks out of my life, and then I was back to being a doc. I can't imagine how these defense attorneys go from one case to the next, because the tension is just unbelievable, and I'm very grateful to them and what they do. They could be making a lot more money practicing corporate law, but they choose to defend us, and I'm very grateful for that. So the jury comes back, and in my favor. Needless to say, I'm incredibly relieved. The plaintiff's attorney comes over to me afterwards and says, I forget the exact words, that this was nothing personal, and he extended his hand. Maybe this was small of me, but I did not extend my hand. I did not say a word. I walked away. I felt like he had attempted a legal mugging and was unsuccessful. So I'm leaving the courthouse, and there are the jurors all talking amongst each other on the plaza, And I went over and I thanked them. And in the following 12 months, two of them came to me to see me as a doctor, which to me was, it felt really good. It means they really had trusted me and believed me with what I had to say. So I want to emphasize that it is a horrible experience. MLMIC was behind me every day from start to finish about this case, and I'm very appreciative to them. I now, although I'm the chief medical officer at MLMIC at the time of this trial, I was not. I was just another insured, but I always felt supported by them. The key thing is not to let these trials, these experiences, sour you on the practice of medicine, not to take this home to your family, not to change the attitude you have about patients and the work that you do, because in my experience, in my opinion, I should say, that's when they've really won. That's when they've really won, when they've changed your attitude, if they've made you jaded about the practice of medicine. So it's a horrible experience. You can get through it. MLMIC will help you get through it. I haven't been sued much. I've been sued on more than one occasion in 38 years. I probably won't be sued anymore since I've stopped practice, but we are there for you. And I hope this experience that I'm sharing with you will help you to feel less guilty about having been sued, less like you have to hide it from your colleagues in the profession. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. In the hopes that we can support each other, colleague to colleague, as this process unfolds. As always, I'm available for any questions you might have. You can reach me at jlombardo@mlmic.com, and I'll be happy to talk with you at any point about anything. So thanks very much for listening, and carry on.